What is the story of this Osiris download?
They don't realize you can remember yourself and come back together and be stronger than ever. So many people have a fear of sifting through all that stuff. A lot of us aren't speaking our truth and our voice. It's really, I think, where the magic happens.
Hey everyone, welcome to What If It's Possible. Today I'm sitting down with Brandon Yager. Brandon calls himself an activator of ancient wisdom. So his background is in biohacking, relationships, personal development. But something really interesting and unique is he describes having an Osiris download in Egypt in 2025. And from that experience, his soul experienced an awakening that changed the trajectory of his life. I'm extremely excited to have a conversation with you about this experience and the work that you're doing now. Welcome to the show, Brandon. So glad you're here.
Thanks for having me, Jimmy. This is going to be a fun conversation. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, same here. If anyone's new here to the show, What If It's Possible is a show where we're exploring ideas, stories, and conversations that are really stretching what we believe about healing, about humanity, consciousness, relationships, creativity, purpose, and the future that we're all here to build. And Brandon's one of a perfect person to have a conversation about that. If you don't mind me just diving in head first, what is the story of this Osiris download? And what was the origin of all of this? How did this start for you?
Yeah. So our brand is your true alchemy. And a lot of, I think, everything we're trying to do on a daily basis, build a business, go to work, relationships, intimate relationship, is alchemy, especially our health. There's so much stuff around biohacking that, there's stuff that works, there's stuff that may be gimmicks. And it's like, what we're trying to sort all this out. And part of alchemy, what alchemy means to me is just the burning away of stuff that no longer serves us. And we have to be open to new belief systems, adopting new strategies, habits, behaviors, and all of that gets alchemized, into our soul, into our subconscious. And we either, focus on results or we don't. And so with Osiris, my wife, Deborah, she's an incredible researcher. And so she loves to go down the research. And I mean, it's been her calling to go to Egypt probably since she was a little girl. I really became interested in Egypt just because I was like, what do we not know about our history? The stuff that we learn in school, it never sat right with me. It was like, there's got to be more than this. There's this 5,000 to 6,000 year old thing. We've only been around. There's a lot of stuff we try to put in boxes of we're only this, old as far as a planet. And there's just so much stuff out there that throws a lot of that out of the window. And so we went to Egypt twice last year. We went with a really good friend of ours, William Henry. Beautiful tour. Got to see all this stuff. It was like a 14-day, deal. We were there for 2 weeks. We were actually there for a month. It was one of the first month-long trips we've taken. Ended in Hurghada. I did some scuba diving down there, got certified. And then we went back in December. We took 6 couples, close friends of ours, and we already knew we wanted to start bringing people to Egypt. And, we had private tours, and the privates is really, I think, where the magic happens. So the night that we went to Dendera it's just outside of Luxor, and it's the temple of Hathor. Hathor is about love and laughter and play and dance and music and fun. And it's a reminder for all of us to have more fun. We work our asses off. We're focused on the business, taking care of the family, and not to take life so damn seriously. And so that night we had this beautiful, at night, I did it in the daytime, and we went back at night, and the place is just lit up, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. And, I'll have to send you some photos and some videos that we took in there. It's pretty wild though. And it was a remembering. Truly, Deb and I were walking up, and I was like, this place feels like home. It's the only country that I've ever been in that I'm like, I've been here before. There was a true, subtle, we've done this before. And I think a lot of people are having these kinds of memories or these kinds of connections to whether it's a different lifetime, whatever it may be. And so that night, we had this, beautiful little kind of opening ceremony. And I realized through that, just tapping into this frequency of Osiris. And this is why this Jed pillar is always, it called to me, this is the Jed pillar. This is they call it the Osiris pillar, the Osiran pillar. And to me, it's an ancient symbol of stability, foundation, strength, power. And it's got these 4 little ribs at the very top: spiritual, emotional, mental, physical. And it means so many things. But to me, it's just that, the story of Osiris, he was torn apart and scattered by this evil brother Set, and he was scattered all over parts of Egypt. And Isis, his wife, who also his sister, remembered him back together, rebuilt him anew, and he resurrected stronger, better than ever. And I think
Man.
that's really what it's a beautiful metaphor for alchemy because, we get stuff that happens in our business, stuff that happens in our life. We have loss, we have, illness, whatever it may be. And those parts of us get torn apart. But a lot of people think that's who they are once they've been torn apart. They don't realize you can remember yourself and come back together and be stronger than ever. And I think, and it's not about being torn apart. It's about actually, so many people have a fear of sifting through all that stuff, right? The stuff that no longer serves them. What are they alchemizing? What are they burning away? What are they shedding like the snake skin? And we are going to go through just so many cycles and rhythms of alchemy in our relationships, in our business, our job, friendships, family, in our health. It's happening right now more than everything. Spirituality is waking people up. They're opening up to not just this box of a limited belief system. And that's really what I connected with. Osiris was quite the benevolent leader. And I don't even like thousands of years that he could have been leading, the people of Egypt. And so he was a steward of the land. He taught people how to farm. He taught people agriculture. The Nile was life for them. And so I think we're getting back to some of this simple stuff too. And I look at the farming in our country, and in other countries, and we need to do a better job of stewarding the land, stewarding the animals, taking care of our planet. And so I had this connection. It's like it happened that night at Hathor, but when we went back to this beautiful farm to table resort, I realized, I was in the shower and I was doing some research on chat and Claude, and I was listening to the story of Osiris, and I realized like this evil brother Set, my brother was on the trip, my older brother, Aaron James, amazing human, divine masculine. And I realized he's just a mirror for showing me the evil brother Set in myself. And I think that's what the metaphor is showing us the shadow side. And so I just had this pure connection to knowing who I am. I was weeping. I was about to get in the shower and I was just weeping for like 5-6 minutes, uncontrollable, of like how I had been blocking gifts. And I had some channel open up that night and I was truly like hearing voices, and I was hearing things and seeing things that I hadn't been able to tap into. And it was this divine connection to knowing myself. I turned 40 last October. So I just turned 40, and it was almost like this forgiveness of blocking and damning gifts that had been there the whole time. And I think all of us have these incredible gifts, that we have these skills, we have this powerful intuition. Unfortunately, a lot of us, we get in our head and we block it, or we don't allow it to open up fully. And so I think that's what a big part of this is like, how do we tap into our gifts? And so embracing some of this ancient wisdom that comes from Egypt and Ayurvedic culture and, just all over the place. I mean, it's everywhere. And we're coming back full circle to where, how do we apply this to our modern day lifestyle, right? Our modern day thinking. And it really challenges us. I think we need to open up to these belief systems. We always tell people, like, is it all right if we bump up against your belief systems? Because if we didn't, then how are we going to grow? How are we going to spiritually develop? And that's that's the work that we do. Like, that is the great work. I think that's why we're all here on this planet right now, because we're in an exciting time, and things are about to get real.
I think it's definitely going to get real, like real, genuine, real, more authentic, less distortion and confusion. Brandon, what a story, man. I don't even, like, I'm trying to think of where to start with this. You said you found yourself, a deeper part of yourself, like through this channel that opened up. What was it that you found? What was the before and after, just so I could get a little bit more context on like what that was? Were you already spiritual before this, or
Yeah, for sure.
okay. And so this is like just a deeper, almost initiation, if you will, into this world.
So I've always had what I would feel a pretty amazing intuition. When I got into real estate at 18, real estate became a very natural thing for me. No one in my family had done it, maybe 3-4 generations back had been in and around real estate. But there was this intuition of like communication, an intuition of choosing properties to purchase, investments, selling and marketing properties for clients. There was an instant, like a natural, organic intuition. Most of my real estate investments, I mean, like almost all of them have gone exquisitely amazing. Whether I was always buying, like I'd walk through a property, I'd be like, this is a great deal. I'll crunch the numbers, but there was an intuition of like, I could screw this deal up and still make a bunch of money. And so there was like, it was taking that intuition, that subtlety connection of my gut, and then really maximizing it and opening it up at a greater level. Deb and I, we met 13 years ago in an NLP training, and we did trainings. You know, we did 16 trainings in California out of my real estate office before we ever really even made any money doing this and helping people at a deeper level. When we moved to Austin, excuse me, when we moved to Austin, we just, you know, we got on stages, we networked our butts off and built a 7-figure company in 3 years. And it was a true test to not just the work that we teach, but it was embodying it. And I think a lot of people don't embody the work that they're actually doing. They either don't enjoy it, they hate their job, they're like, yeah, it's good. You know, they got the golden handcuffs for a lot of people, or they've created a business that is successful and they no longer have the passion, the drive, the inspiration to even run it. I've been working with a lot of entrepreneurs like that recently, where they're like, you know, they've built a successful multi-million-dollar company and they're like, I don't even like what I do anymore. And I think a lot of us are going through that alchemizing process of, what is my true work? Like, what am I here to do? What's my destiny? What's my purpose? And I think right now we're waking up to how we can help other humans, because I do believe we need to ascend our consciousness. We need to evolve the way we think. I don't think wars should be on this planet at all. I think it's all contrived. I think it's all manipulation. And that's what we're realizing. We're peeling back layers of distortion and manipulation of like what is real. And we have to think beyond that. So when we can tap into our intuition and we have our truth, a lot of us aren't speaking our truth in our voice. And that's something that's activating right now. And so Deb and I have been doing trainings for 13 years. We've been doing one-on-one coaching. I call it high performance coaching, but it's so much deeper than just like accountability and strategy. It truly is personal transformation. It's deep personal breakthroughs. And when you can sort through who you are, you really rebuild yourself. And it's truly the resurrection of the new. Like we will tear ourselves down by experiences, traumas, significant emotional events. And that's not bad. That's just becoming who we need to become on the other side. We're so much stronger, so much more resilient, so much more powerful than we think we are. And so Deb and I mean, I've done plant medicine. The first time I ever did plant medicine was like 2015, and I did an ayahuasca, ceremony, and it was just incredible. Like I've had such great experiences, and over the last like 6 months, I've had a few ego deaths for sure. Bringing in humility, bringing in forgiveness for myself, forgiveness of others, and really using these tools of looking at this past. Like a lot of us, we have all these memories, we have this whole timeline of events, but we look at a lot of that stuff, we don't see the gift from that garbage, and I've taken events where it's like, man, I needed to get a different perspective on how it turned out for me, thinking it was a negative event. It really wasn't. It was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that happened, because I'm a better person, I'm a better leader, I'm a better husband. And a lot of us need to really kind of sift through that and look at the power that came from some of the worst events in our life. That's where the book happens. That's where the signature talk is created. And that's who you step into. And it's identity work. It's like, I had this huge identity going through the program when I first met Deb around being a broker, and this ego around being a real estate person. And when that like shattered and crumbled in like really crumbled in 2020, I kept the business, but been doing full-time trainings, live events, retreats. It was interesting, that identity shift of like, I don't need to have a license, a piece of paper that says I'm a real estate broker and that makes me worthy. And so many of us, like, once you get the degree, you get the certificate, you get whatever license you need to operate in business. That's a construct. Like, we're humans and we don't need a piece of paper, a permission slip, tell us how great we are. And so many of us, it's fascinating. So many of us need that. We desire that. And that's our like safety, comfort, security. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it completely makes sense. I think it's like it's a two-way street too, because other people also look for that in other people themselves in order for them to feel safe. So, but I hear you in terms of like the self-validation piece. So you shifted over and you've completely gone from real estate into like transformational work and self-development. What does a program with you look like? What are the key things that you are walking people through that you think is the most significant for transformation to happen? Like what does that look like?
I mean, I always say I love that quote. The mind is like a parachute. It always works best when it's open. It's so true. So when I was like 18, got my license, hit an early level success, and then I hired a coach because I was just doing unhealthy habits and behaviors. I was in an unhealthy relationship. And at the time, I didn't realize I was just letting myself go. So letting my health go. I was drinking way too much. I was eating, smoking pot, and I gained 42 pounds. I have like a I have a photo, I actually put it up the last retreat. I have a big Brandon photo and then me now. And in my mid 20s, I actually looked older than I do right now at 40. And a lot of us, it was so unconscious. It was a comfortable, everything looks good on paper type of relationship. And I was just becoming, what I would consider a slob for myself. Money was there, but I was stressed out, unhappy. It was never enough. And I was coping and numbing for the relationship conversation that I wasn't having. And I was engaged to her, actually. We were engaged for like 6 to 8 months, something like that almost. And it was one of those off and on relationships for 5, 6 years. Break up, great sex, get back together, break up, get back together, that kind of, unhealthy, unconscious, just relationship. And after my first NLP training, it was in Vegas. I just got honest with myself. I looked in the mirror. I did these techniques. I didn't realize I had some belief systems that were totally out of whack. I was adopting some stuff from my dad, who was this brilliant scientist. He was in farming, agriculture, and just an incredible man. He also had, he was in the Vietnam War. And so he had a lot of PTSD. He had stuff that he never talked about. He had 2 bronze medal stars. You practically have to do courageous, acts of bravery and nearly lose your life. He didn't have 1, he had 2. So he was the kind of dad that was tough. He was strict, but he gave me discipline. And it was everything I needed. He was an incredible father. He also repressed a lot of stuff, and his health wasn't his top priority. He didn't look unhealthy from the outside. He was just more of an internal unhealthiness, mental and emotional, especially emotional health. And so that, that really taught me. As much as he taught me everything beautiful, the things he didn't teach me, I had to figure out on my own. My brother and I, both into health, biohacking, we're both coaches. We're both into the mental and emotional performance of communication and what that does for your life. And so when I hit my glass ceiling at like 22 to 23, it was like 2008. We'd gone through the crash of all the real estate market. So I always pivoted my business to bank-owned foreclosures, asset managers, learned a lot. That's when the veil started to lift for me, Jimmy. It was like, holy shit, we have all these foreclosures in California. And I started reading through loan docs and seeing the corruption, seeing the fraudulent documentation, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, all this stuff that I was like, wow. Like, is this really happening? And I was young and dumb. I didn't really truly know what was going on, but I was starting to question. And I think a lot of us need to start to question more. It doesn't matter what it is. Run it through your critical thinking faculty. Run it through, your own sovereignty of values and beliefs. And that's when that veil started to open up for me. And I found NLP. Actually, I found a coach. She was highly trained in NLP. Her name is Rhonda, and she just kind of smacked me upside the head. She looked at my business, and I was wanting to make more money. I always thought everything was a business problem, like so many of us do. We're like, oh, it's business, business, business. There's very few business problems that you cannot solve if you're a clear conduit and a clear channel of just skill and confidence. And she's like, Brandon, your business is actually doing fine. She's like, you're the problem in your business. She's like, you got all this personal stuff going on. And she was like, you need to go take these NLP trainings. And that's how I really, when I listened to her, because she was making 20 million plus a year. And I was like, this woman is highly successful. She's a beautiful leader. She communicates effortlessly. She speaks her truth. All things I was struggling with. And so many of us struggle with, especially as young, early on entrepreneurs. So when I got back to my first training, like I just realized how many unconscious blocks and debris and all this crap of not being able to focus and blaming others, not taking responsibility for my part in relationships and where my business was at the time. And like right after that training, within 90 days, I made like $100,000. I put $100,000 in escrow on deals. I just got my health in alignment. I came back and I asked my ex-fiance, I was like, hey, let's take these trainings. Let's get healthy. She wanted nothing to do with it. And so I made that decision. Well, if she doesn't want to grow, I'm not going to be in this relationship. And we had this knockdown, drag out fight. And I just remember leaving and saying, I'm never coming back again. And I think we're met with thousands of decisions on a daily basis. I would say 80% of them are unconscious. I'm going to go get coffee. I'm going to put my shoes on. Let's go for a walk, right? All these little decisions, but we don't really look at the priority of these decisions and how conscious they really are, because everything comes down to decisions that we make on a daily basis. And so are we focused on our health? Are we focused on the vision and the outcome of what we truly desire most? Whether it's go make $1 million, go transform and help people live better lives. Also, what service are we bringing to humanity? And because of these decisions we make, so many of them are clouded by negative emotions, traumas, limitations, false beliefs, programming, propaganda. All of this is running on autopilot. And so if we don't do our best to clear out how we make decisions. There's a decision strategy process in us at the unconscious level. And if it's like trying to drive with this muddy windshield, right? And you can't see shit, and you could put the wipers on and it's not really that clean, you know? And the more we do that, the more we just have this fuzzy vision of who we are, what our purpose is, we're not going to get great results, right? If we're not setting big goals, taking inspired massive action, how are we going to hit that stuff? And that's really what I was doing. Is once I got back from this training, it cleared out a whole bunch of crap for me. I didn't really have a lot of fear, you know, maybe some of just, if it's not enough, make more, get more rentals, you know, do more. I was a driver. I've got lots of energy, so I can go forever. But I built that business making, you know, cold calls for sale by owners, changed my business model to an online model for real estate, and just attacked for sale by owners because I knew I could serve them, help them save money, and do a high volume, right? And I've always been kind of the black sheep. I've always gone against the grain. I want to find like a new trend, or I want to find a new way to do business with different models. And so it was a beautiful experience at a young age to get into business like that. I'm super grateful that I went to City College for like, I don't know, 8 months, dropped out, and I was like, I need to just get into business. And I already had my real estate license at the time. I was just a very driven individual, probably because I saw my dad get fired from corporate world. So I saw kind of like this rich dad and then poor dad kind of mindset. And he struggled in his own consulting business with soil and agronomy. And I saw that he didn't really quite have all the tools to communicate, to negotiate, to effectively charge what he was worth. And it hurt. It hurt because I could see my dad being this like PhD, master, scientist, brilliant mind. He just struggled at business. And I think there's a lot of people out there like him where they've got this incredible skill set, but they don't know how to market it. They don't know how to sell themselves with confidence and get paid what they're worth. So they resort to W2 corporate, and there's always a cap on that. And I just, you know, I think I've had like literally 2 W2 jobs in my life. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. And so I don't think anyone can pay me what I know I can pay myself. And that's what these tools allow me to do is clear out my baggage, you know, love my family. They're doing the best they can with the resources they have, but truly go to the resort of how do I expand? How do I accelerate? How do I really get into a growth, abundant mindset and just create everything I want to manifest in my life? Health, wealth. I'm so grateful that Deborah and I met in 2013. So I did that first training. The second training was in July that year. And then I met her in the training, and she was back there, and I was like, who's that sitting back there? I was like, she's gorgeous. I'm going to go talk to this girl. And then I go up to her, and her name says Deborah. Well, my ex-fiance's name was Deborah, Deb. And I was like, there's no way. And so what was funny is when I broke up with my ex, I was like, I need to meet a better, hotter, younger Deb, a better, hotter, younger Deb. And I kept saying that. And then this beautiful soul shows up in the event. She was working on herself. She was there for her. She has her whole story. That's incredible to see her heal. Gave me such inspiration to go do more. It's been a pretty incredible life. Like I truly love my life, and it's fucking fascinating what we have created together.
Yeah, you look like you're glowing, man. Like as soon as you joined into this room and I started talking to you, I was like, this dude is glowing. He's happy. Like I love to see it, man. And I also just wanted to say and acknowledge, like, thank you for doing the work that you had to do to get to where you are now, to like clear this up and to actually be able to help people in a really clean way, you know? So going back to the thread that we're pulling at, so it sounds like NLP is sort of like the basis of your transformation. And now you are using that with all of your like knowledge and acumen and like life lessons, of course, also life experience. You're sharing that on to other people. What does that look like practically if you had to talk to a new client and they needed 5 tips, 3 tips?
Sure. So NLP is neuro-linguistic programming. It's not just NLP. We brought in so many modalities now: somatic work, hypnosis. We do a lot of regression techniques with hypnosis. There's timeline work. There's a technique we call quantum time technique to set goals, to let stuff go from the past. And it's simply the science of communication. It's how we assess body language, tonality, and words. Language is such a thing that, from my perspective, knowing what I know now about language, and language is really the frequency and the resonance of what and who we attract. So if we're around people that we're like, man, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this situation, right? Whatever card or hand you feel like you've been dealt in life, doesn't matter where you are, background, you're at a frequency, you're vibrating at a frequency, and that's the frequency of what you have in the bank, what you have in material possessions, and the people that are around you. And when you decide to up-level that frequency, you have to change your language. Language, a lot of people believe language, we describe the world we live in, when reality is language determines where we live in the world. So if you want to live up here, you have to have a completely different set of language versus if you're down here. And so that's really what we're big on linguistics, because everything comes down to questions. If you want better answers, ask better questions. And in the coaching setting, how can we ask the kind of questions that gets the client to think so deep that they actually solve the problem themselves by the nature of a really profoundly presented question, right? And so language has been huge throughout, getting into practice. We've probably done close to probably just under 95 events from now since 2013. And that has given us an incredible experience that's so beautiful. Like sometimes when you're in an event, you feel the energy of the room. You're assessing where people are. And so how do we deliver the best stories and metaphors to help people in facilitation of change? And that's really what we all are as change makers. We're facilitating other people's transformation. I think business is more coaching than business is business, because we're working with people. And the more we work with people, the more we have to work with their habits, their behaviors, their emotional reactions, their thoughts and routine feelings. And if we can get people to build rapport and open up, feel safe, you can get into their intimate problems and help them solve them faster. And I think that's really just what all of these tools and modalities have allowed us to do. And it gives you great confidence. We've probably trained over, 3,400 people, close to 3,500. And when you train that many people, you start to see all these patterns that we have, these universals. We have a big thing around self-worth, right? We have a big thing around identity. I'm a doctor. I'm a performance coach. And so we have all these universals of problems because of the way our society is programmed, and the programming comes in the form of magazines, newspapers, media, news, social media, school, religion. All of this is programming, in our subconscious. And it's been this way for thousands and thousands of years. And so the more we start to look at these programs and say, is this program operating and is it working in my life? And if it's not, having the courage and the bravery to literally do something else. It's like, if we know this doesn't work, then what do we want instead? And how do we make it work? And so that's what NLP, I started using it in sales. I started using it for handling clients' objections in real estate. Got really good at that because of phone calls and sales calls. And then I realized I could use this with my team to up level the way they think and the way they thought about making sales and providing for their family. And then I realized these tools are for everyone. And that's what kind of transitioned me out of real estate. Was like, I want to not just help people in real estate, buyers and sellers and agents. I want to help people that are healing from trauma, people like my dad that have no idea that that's actually in their subconscious. And that's affecting their day-to-day life. Relationships, I want people to have a divine union relationship, the kind of relationship Deb and I have. I want other people to experience that, like a true, power couple relationship where you can go create whatever you want. You have great sex, you have great communication, you love being with each other. Deb and I do almost everything together. There's times where we have to literally say, hey, I'm going to go do my own thing and she's going to go do hers, but we're always together. We build a business together. We do so much together. And that's what I love about it. And family stuff, so many people have challenging relationships with mom, dad, siblings. And how do we work through this stuff with a set of tools that give us a solid foundation of how to communicate so that we aren't just constantly in conflict and fighting and anger and sadness. And that's what so much of our construct is made up of. Our society is these problems are out there and people are making a lot of money on the problems. And yet the answers are all here. And when we go inside to find these answers, to speak our truth, to know who we are, to remember ourselves, you don't really have to give up money. You don't have to give up your power and your empowerment to others and organizations and systems that are literally harvesting that from us. And that's what's going on. We're waking up to this harvest and we're realizing, shit, I'm more powerful than I thought I was, right? I'm so much more than my job. I'm so much more than, this poor health. And we can take back that control, take back that sovereignty and that freedom and do whatever we want. But it's a choice. We got to make the choice to want to do it. And I think that's where it's an exciting time to be alive because people are making that choice now.
You're speaking my language, man. It's everything that you're doing. Hypnosis, NLP. I've been through, I'm just through this process myself. And it's so funny that you talk about choice because I think so many of us, and I'm it's fresh for me, going through this experience. I went through this maybe a year or 2 years ago where I was working the 9 to 5 corporate job and I didn't realize how unhappy and how draining that was on me as a person. And once I chose my way out of that by being hey, wait, actually, this isn't the life that I want. and making that conscious decision, as soon as I made that conscious choice, and you said every choice is so subconscious until we make it conscious, essentially. Once I made that choice, that's when things started to fall into place. Things started to change. Things, a whole another level of life like opened up by you just saying, hey, I feel like I want this for myself now because this isn't what I want. And it's really profound. It's really crazy. If someone who is on the before side of this journey, they're still in a place where they don't feel satisfied, don't feel happy, don't know what their power is. What is a question? What are some words using NLP, using the other tools that you have in your utility belt, would you bring out to help trigger this for someone that's listening, watching right now?
Yeah, no, I love it, dude. I love that you're waking up to that. I felt like my 9 to 5 was real estate for a while because I was grinding it out longer, better, harder, faster. That was like my corporate day of like, I'd wear the suit and the tie, or I'd wear a nice dress, shirt. And I was like, is this really for me? And don't get me wrong, I loved real estate. It started out of like, I wanted to get into real estate for investing and making money. And then it became, oh, I can be a full-time agent, find more deals, serve some clients, make money at it while I buy properties. And then it just became this like, is it just for money? Like maybe I'm doing this just for money. It became like that kind of a question in my mind. I remember with my ex, I remember looking in the mirror and saying, I'm not honest with myself. And I think you have to be honest with yourself, and you have to have the mask. You have to allow the ego mask to come down and say, what do I desire most? Like, what do I really want? Some people don't know what they want. A lot of people, surprisingly, even successful clients I've worked with, millionaires, they're like, I don't know what I want anymore. They've gone through divorce. Maybe they've gone through business challenges, strife, maybe family issues, kids, separation, whatever. I think so many people do not know what they want. And that correlates to like, what is their purpose? What is their identity? And this is where I think I love working with people that are in transition of this. It's like, they built a successful business. Maybe their health has slipped, especially like really successful guys that I know in their like 50s and 60s, and they're starting to get back into their health, but they're transitioning into like this next step of leader, but they don't know what that leadership is. Like, is it a consultant, somebody who goes out there and helps a bunch of people? Is it somebody who, starts facilitating retreats or, taking people on kind of like these ancient wisdom tours, which they're not really tours, they're experiences that you can tap into this. And I think it's a great place to be because like, if you don't know who you are, you don't know what you want, you get to rebuild that, right? And that takes this level of making this conscious choice like you did of literally saying, I like what I've built and who I was isn't who I am. It's got me to here, but that's not going to get me to where I want to go. And I think it's really tough for a lot of us entrepreneurs that have created that success is to shift that identity and literally be okay to remake, because what you're doing is you're literally 7 stages of alchemy. You're literally going to go back through the 7 stages of alchemy. What do I have to burn? What am I dissolving? What am I separating from? What am I coagulating to build this new person? And it's a beautiful process. It can be painful as hell sometimes. It can be uncomfortable more than anything. And it takes a lot of courage and bravery to do that, especially like midlife shift, a midlife change, and I think you have to ask the question, what do you really want? And then be willing to, even if it's something that is completely different from the career or the business that you have. To me, it was a very easy step to go from real estate into coaching, because I felt like really what I'm doing, when I got down to where I realized I wasn't succeeding with my own company, I go, what I'm doing is I'm not being a very good coach to my people. That hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, I wasn't even coaching myself, and I wasn't taking radical self-responsibility. I was blaming others. And one of my biggest limitations was nobody wants to work anymore. Everybody just wants to get paid to do nothing. Well, that was my own pile of shit that I was standing in. And as soon as I let go of that, and I also let go of, I make a lot of money, but I can't keep any of it, another false belief, then I started to make more money and keep it. And I also started to hire better people and find better team members. And so we have these belief systems that they're stories. Something a parent tells us really young sticks in our nervous system. An event that happens in a breakup or a bad business deal sticks to us. And then we tell that story like it's a badge of honor, instead of learning from it, getting a new perspective, and then releasing it, and not like propping this story of scarcity, fear, doubt, insecurity, all this lack modality, like a lack mentality. We just have to let that shit go. And if we don't release it by letting it go, And sometimes it's just sharing the story, right? Sometimes jumping on a podcast and talking about the story or writing a book. And we need to learn from it, because when you learn from it, then the emotion's not there. You're not ruminating on it. It's not giving you anxiety. It's not giving you panic attacks like so many people have. And a lot of people don't create more. It's because they don't have this capacity to hold more, because they're like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so busy. I can't focus. I'm so distracted. Social media, this, that. That's because they have a limited capacity of what they can hold. I look back at my real estate days in my 20s, 28, 29, 22 even. I thought I was so busy. I was like so distracted is what I really was. I wasn't focused. And that's because I was full of limitations. And the more limitations we have, how can we create more and manifest more if we're full of scarcity, right? We're operating from scarcity, which is really difficult to create a lot. It's going to make feeling like making money and building a business is harder than it really is. And it's not that hard if you clear out your personal shit.
Yeah. How did you figure out what your capacity was, or like what was the blockers for you? Like, what did that look like for you? Like, was there a defining moment?
Yeah, like hypnosis, there's integrations of like different parts of our subconscious, parts work. Like we have a lot of fragmentation in our body. The subconscious, our unconscious mind has fragmentations, right? I attracted all my mom's beautiful stuff, all my dad's beautiful stuff. They alchemize that, but you also attract and you also get, you're modeling your parents, you're modeling whoever raised you, teachers, friends, parents of friends. And so you get the best and you also get the worst. And it's not that it's bad. It's just that you have to discern what is going to work for you and what's not. And these subconscious programs, like my dad, he's a Kansas farming boy. He was a dry crop farmer. So he had a lot of scarcity around money. So naturally I adopted that. Mom grew up on the East Coast. I was born on the East Coast. And, she kind of came from a wealthier family and a mindset that understood business better. My grandfather was a beautiful mentor for my brother and I, Pop. And, so mom, she had a wealthy mindset, but she also had problems with spending money, right? So I had to alchemize that and make sure that I made it, kept it, and wasn't scarce like dad, but wasn't like frivolous like mom. And so many of us, we have a parent like that, right? The opposite. And so we're learning from both. And it's just realizing like, oh, like this pattern, this behavior around money, it's not serving me, right? And and you've got to have great mentors to see that. Like Rhonda, she was an idol for me because she was making 20 plus million a year. And here this 20-year-old kid comes in, like I have a business that's making $500,000 a year. And I'm like, I want to make $1 million. Why am I not making $1 million? And she's like, well, you're the problem. Brandon, you want to know why you're not making money? It's like you. It's not your business. It's me. And behind every struggling business, behind a struggling organization is an entrepreneur or a leader who doesn't have their shit together. And that's it. Like they're either a hothead, which I had anger, and I could pick up the phone and make 20 sales calls and make 3 sales. And then I'd be like, all right, agents, go do that. And they'd be like, what do you mean? What do you want me to do? What you just did? I can't do that. I'd be like, what the fuck do you mean? Like I'd go crazy, like, because I didn't understand, like, you could do this. Like you have come on, I'm 20. Like I had people that were working for me that were like in their 40s. I'm like, what do you mean you can't do this? I was like, how can you not do this? Like I didn't understand like the compassion and the empathy of like why and how people had so much fear, blocks, and doubt and insecurity, because I just was confident. And that confidence leads you to a whole nother swing of the pendulum of like not having that compassion, not being patient and working and training and coaching people to success. So I had to learn that. I had to learn that side of it. But all the techniques, hypnosis, clearing out limitations, beliefs, scarcity around money. I wanted to make it, but I didn't know why I wanted to make it so much, is because I saw mom and dad not have it for a period of time. Like when I was 11 on, that's why right out of high school, I jumped into real estate. So like, I'm going to probably have to take care of my family. I was like, there was times where I just remember like looking around, like, does anyone know what the hell they're doing in this household? Like, as a young person, not like to put them down, but it was just this way of like, we could do more, right? Like I think big. I'm a visionary, and I realize even for me now, over just the last 6 months since Egypt, I was like, holy shit, I've been thinking so small. I was like, I need to think giant. I need to think even bigger than the way I've been thinking. Like in order to help the planet here and wake people up and evolve consciousness, like I've got to think 100 times more than I've been thinking, and money is just a gauge of that. But really I've been thinking, how can we help transform 1 billion lives? If you can transform 1 billion lives, you can shift the consciousness of this planet. We could shift anything that might happen in some kind of a catastrophe, as if we just get a hold of our thinking. That like rising tide rises all boats. And that's what we need to do. We need to rise together, right? Put our squabbles down. We're so similar. All of us are similar. We're actually one and the same. We just don't realize it. Whatever background we came from, like we gotta, put the shit we're slinging and just adopt love. Unconditional love is something that that's been in my reality probably since like November. And then when I went to Egypt, I realized there's a greater level of self-respect, self-acknowledgement, and self-love that I wasn't even giving to myself, which was preventing me to giving it fully to Deb and others. And so adopting that for ourselves, that's a big piece too. I think why some people are so angry, so frustrated, so miserable is they don't really love themselves. They say they do, but they don't actually say, me.
I think at the core of everything, for me, when I hear you say that, it is always coming back to love. I think for me, when I hear this, that is the ultimate cheat code. If anyone wants a simple tip on life, it's just constantly go look through everything through the lens of love, speak through the lens of love, see through the lens of love instead of fear, doubt, hate, grief, all those other things. I'm not saying not to feel all those things, but to just see things in a more loving way. And your communication will change. The way that you interact with people will change. The way you feel about yourself will change drastically. And thank you for hitting that note for sure. Hypnosis. What was your first hypnosis experience, Brandon? I'm so curious because I've had one myself too. It is shocking to me that this tool exists and I've known about it for my whole life essentially. And you know that it works. You hear stories. Some people you don't believe, but it's shocking to me that a tool so significantly powerful for transformation exists. So many people know about it. No one's using it. How did you find it? What was your experience?
I mean, so I just remember sitting in training and I remember learning hypnosis and I was like, this just makes sense. I was like, it was such a natural, organic thing. I was like, finally something that makes sense that like school didn't teach. Right. And hypnosis has been around for thousands of years. When you go down the rabbit hole of the history of hypnosis, it was the original medicine. Like we had lodestones. Lodestones were magnets, animal magnetism. The original doctors and practitioners of medicine all used hypnosis. And that's what made sense to me was like, where did medicine come from? Did all of a sudden we just start, injecting people with stuff and cutting people open? It's like, no, the way they healed gout, the way they healed famine, a lot of shit that was in the water that made people sick was hypnosis. The power of installation is more powerful than anything in the world. It's the most powerful thing. So when you look at propaganda, when you look at the news, when you look at all the history of these horrific events that we would call horrific, the one tool, the one weapon they used was what was going into their mind, right? If you can like literally, they've done so many studies and tests on this, you can have different people and you can just install negative, horrible, just violent stuff in their mind and they become that person. They become that feeling. They vibrate at that frequency, that resonance of just hatred. Another person, you can install nothing but love and abundance and happiness and wealth and they become that. And that's just as simple as what hypnosis is. A lot of us are so focused on the food that we put in our body. We are not focused with the information that we put in our mind. And those two together are so powerful. Like we need to pay attention to what we're eating. Yes, there's toxic stuff in food and water, blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing in our information, right? Like right now, we're not in a shortage of information. We're in information overload, right? Social media, freaking news, which I'm not sure why anyone watches it because it's all negative stuff. And so you think the world is more negative than it really is because the news is so negative. That's by design. When we travel to other countries, you hear our country talking negative about that country. You get there and you're like, there's nothing but peace and love here. But the perception, this facade that we have up that we're hearing about is all negative, but it's really not when you get there. That's one big thing about Egypt. Like the people are loving there, and people that usually say, oh gosh, isn't it dangerous there have never been to that country, number one, which I find fascinating. I'm like, have you been to this country? They're like, oh no. I'm like, I would never go. And I'm like, for what purpose? Because it's so dangerous. How do you know? You've never been there. So it's the installation, the power of installation. And a lot of people have negative self-talk. And for me, I didn't realize this until I really truly met my wife, Deborah. She had a lot of negative self-talk. In other words, you ask her a question and she'll ask herself 20 questions in her mind. You can't do that. Who do you think you are? You're not that confident. You're not that sexy. You're not that fit. You're not strong enough. You're not smart enough. All these negative self-talk. She calls it the itty bitty shitty committee. Like you gotta shut that voice down. I didn't have that voice. Like my mind is really quiet and calm. I think about things and I get ideas. My Gemini moon, my Mercury moon, I'll come up with ideas, but I'm very balanced and I can be very quiet in my mind and it's very still. And so I can feel things and then I can process them. I'm like, will that work for me? And a lot of people have that negative self-talk. Hypnosis helps you jam and reprogram that negative self-talk. Hypnosis helps you get rid of anxiety. Hypnosis helps you get rid of, the way you communicate negatively to yourself and others. Because most people just think, and this is what a lot of people do. The reason why Deb created so many like really unhealthy, toxic relationships before she met me, she created these guys that were super aggressive, disrespectful, just like, pretty crappy men. But the reason why she was attracting them was because she was negative to herself. And so the subconscious mind shows you the mirror or the shadow work. She was attracting these guys to show her how negative she was to herself. And so they were externally beating her up, but she was internally beating herself up. And that's what so many of us do. It's like, why do I keep attracting this type of woman or this type of guy? Well, it's usually because we're doing something to ourselves that we don't even realize it. So hypnosis exposes that. And what we've been doing recently, Jamie, that's really cool, is we got a bunch of headsets. And so we've been doing breath work. We'll have people laying around the house. We do breath work in different retreats. We do a once a month breath work and, break bread, do a pizza dinner, have a bunch of friends and people come over. Great way to build community and just love on people. And so I'm in the right ear, masculine. Deb's in the left ear, divine feminine. So we've got this beautiful like induction of like masculine, feminine with some awesome music, like some dance music, trance music, like beats. And so we're playing this music and then we're installing nothing but healthy, positive suggestions, the blueprint of perfect health and healing that exists inside, right? Know yourself, trust yourself, believe in yourself, love yourself. People don't hear this on a daily. So when they get this overload of positivity, it almost forces the negative stuff in the jar to just sift out. And people will cry, people will have releases, people will feel good, they'll have tingly sensations of healing all through their body, and they didn't realize they could have. Like breath work to me is life. It's mana, right? Life force energy. And breathwork it's probably been one of my most powerful techniques that I didn't used to, it wasn't that long ago. Like I remember my first breathwork in 2020, 2021. I was like, yeah, this is cool. It's not for me. Right. And I probably didn't even follow the instructions, but since like 2022, 2021, we've been doing breathwork and it really clicked for me over the last just 2 years. I've been having profound out of body experiences, moving this incredible creation fluid up the spine, flushing your brain, having a DMT kaleidoscope activation, psychedelic experience without psychedelics, just through the power of breath. And to me, that's where so many people are lost. They don't realize how powerful their breath is and how much we waste and leak energy just from breath.
Yeah, I think at the core of it all, the breath is probably one of the most effective tools to manipulate and transform the body. You can literally get energy from your breath. You can calm down your nervous system. You can access your theta brainwave state, almost like you can put yourself to sleep. If you have trouble sleeping, try to lay down and just focus on really deep inhales, really long exhales. I used to not understand how this works, but when I was younger, I would have some trouble sleeping sometimes. Like you just lay down, you're like, you were just playing video games, doing whatever you're doing, you're a kid. And I had a hard time sleeping. And when I started to just notice that, if I just really focus on my breathing, I would completely knock out and I wake up the next morning. And that was like one of my first experiences realizing, wow, the breath is really powerful. And kind of similar to you, I had a plant medicine journey where during the journey, one of the key insights was the power is in your breath. That was like out of nowhere. I just heard that said to me, like from somewhere inside me. It was like, your power is in your breath. And ever since then, I've been really tuning in and paying attention to how I breathe when I walk around outside, when you're feeling really flooded or anything like that, just come back to your breath for a second. It's usually probably because you're not paying attention of how deep you're breathing. Most people, and I'm one of those people, we breathe only within our chest cavity, We're not taking those really deep stomach breaths, like those really, really deep breaths. Like Brand, before we got into this podcast, we took a couple breaths together and it really just cuts the edge off and brings us into place, So
Dude,
I know the
I
power
love
of
that
it.
we did that because people don't realize just that 3-4 breaths, 2-3 breaths, long inhale, exhale, like you're literally down regulating your vagus nerve, and this is where I think so many people are in fight or flight is because they're just not able to self-regulate. Breath work to me, we do it every day, whether it's 15 minutes or 50 minutes, even if like at night, sometimes will be, my breath work of just going slow and those holds for 2-3 seconds, breathe out long and slow. Sometimes I just pass out. I don't even remember that I was doing breath work. Breath is such it's an absolute beautiful biohack. I
Yeah.
encourage anyone to do it more. We have recordings that are incredible that we'll go 50, 60 minutes, holotropic. We'll do, some good 2-minute, maybe sometimes 3-minute breath holds. We'll do empty the lungs, breath holds. You feel the alchemy. You're like, you feel like, and this is another thing why I love breathwork. It's because the fear of, oh my God, I need to breathe. I need to breathe, right? That little voice when you're trying to do the long holds. Your body has so much oxygen. If you've been breathing for 10, 20 minutes straight, you have more than enough oxygen in the body. That mitochondria is activated. Your cells are online. Like everything's flowing energetically. You can hold your breath. I mean, a human being, most people don't know this, human being can hold their breath for 8 to 9 minutes. It's the longest breath hold, whether it's free diving or straight up just practicing strength in the lungs. The lungs is a muscle. You can train it. You can enhance it. You can create that resilience, and it's freaking powerful. I love breath work.
Yeah. When you're usually doing your practices, are you doing like a 4-7-8 breathing pattern? Like what's the most effective that what are you usually doing?
It's probably like, so when we start out, I like to do at least 20 breaths where it's in through the nose, probably like a 4 or 5 in and like just a 1 or 2 hold and like 7, 8 out. So we'll do that to open the net vagus nerve, down regulate, and then we'll warm up belly breath for like a few minutes, in and out the mouth, more holotropic probably, I would call it. And then belly, chest, release, belly, chest, release. And we'll do that for, minutes, and then we'll start to get into breath holds. And the whole time, like, we're taking people along this journey. It's not just the breath. What I love about breath is it distracts the conscious mind. The conscious mind is what gets in the way of our transformation. The conscious mind is like, who do you think you are, right? And the unconscious mind's like, we already want you to change, but the only one that's in the way is the conscious freaking mind, because we think we know better. But the body is the intelligence. And when you do breath, you're embodying that. So I love breath work because if you're focused on your breath consciously, then the unconscious installations of what Deb and I are filling you in your headset with, of like healing and health and relationships and going back to childhood, and, give your little child a hug, forgive her, forgive him, love yourself, trust yourself, believe in yourself. You get the conscious mind out of the way. And that's where it's kind of like, we have this wedge, and this is the conscious mind, this is the unconscious mind, the subconscious, and this is the conscious. What hypnosis does, NLP and breath work, all these tools, is it removes this wedge. This wedge is like, who do you think you are, Jimmy? I don't believe you, right? We're constantly battling this, like, I'm a realist. That realist that says, do morning mantras really work, right? Does this personal growth and development really stick? Well, that's because they have this wedge, this thick critical faculty. And what happens in movies, you watch the movie, right? Like I, Robot, and you're into the movie, and then that wedge is removed. And when the wedge is removed, the subconscious and the unconscious integrate. That's where the transformation happens. But if this wedge is there blocking us, that's that realist mindset thinking that nothing's real. I have to see it to believe it. And that's all BS. And as soon as you do breath work, it removes the wedge. Hypnosis removes the wedge. Language removes the wedge, and then everything integrates. And so then they start to believe it because now it's actually finally making it to the body instead of almost getting blocked in the mind.
I've never heard it explained that way, and it makes a lot of sense because I think for a lot of people, the dialogue is really familiar and it's constantly running all the time. It keeps coming back. I'm one of those people, actually. Like I'm like Deb, where I had to go through years and years of having this voice, and it's so familiar because it's always been there. So the idea of it no longer being there, or to even silence it or to not use it anymore, it's really peculiar. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, like in the real estate, but when you work on your computer so often also, you're all mind, like majority of the time. You're completely disembodied for the most part. And I talk to a lot of people about this.
Yeah, sure.
That it's like that disconnection it's really jarring, and it creates creates a healthier environment for these negative thought patterns to kind of sit around and doubt things and be there. So
yeah, for sure.
I wanted to dive into your method because I think everyone listening, watching would really appreciate just like a method that they can kind of do on their own as well to experience some of this and get like a taste of it at the very least. So I think being able to do some of this breath would be really cool. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, it is for sure. I'll get you a link. We've got like a bunch of stuff that they can just free downloads and opt in and to listen to these audios. It's really been a game changer for me. Everything like is obviously done in balance, right? But really the key things that I've seen success for my own self-regulation is daily breath work, morning routine. Sometimes like if I'm like, this is just a rough day, I'm like, I'm just going to fold up today and go breathe. And I'll come back to it with a fresh mind tomorrow or later in the day. But yeah, the getting the conscious, the getting that block out of the way is so big because we are heady. Right. And think about it. We've been living in a very patriarchal, masculine driven system. So we believe that science and just, drive and action, the eagle, all that is this masculine society, this masculine economy. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's greatness to that. But we've also lost the balance of the feminine. This is actually, this is the feminine mind. And men were starting to embrace more of the feminine. Women have been in the masculine. They're starting to embrace more of their feminine. So it's like this balanced system too between the conscious and the subconscious, because the unconscious mind is a feminine mind. Like that's where our emotions live, our habits, belief systems. So we would be foolish to not tap into that intelligence. That's an intelligence that lives in all of us. And it's a greater intelligence than we think. We're truly superhuman. We're super conscious.
Yeah, I think having access to all these faculties and tools, it sounds like the expansion that you were talking about earlier, where in order for us to be more full, we have to use our entire body fully. Subconscious, conscious mind working together, body, mind, spirit, just in unison. Thanks a ton, Brandon. This was a really amazing, I feel like I could talk to you for so much longer. I would love to have you on a future episode. This was really, really enjoyable conversation. Where can folks who want to learn more about your programs and just see more about what you're doing, where can they find you?
Yeah. So yourtruealchemy.com. Right now that's our Egyptian experience, our Egypt experience. We're actually doing that in December for high-level entrepreneurs, leaders, people that really want to experience Egypt in a luxury, private, intimate way. We're only bringing 18 people. So check out yourtruealchemy.com. You'll be able to get to the Egypt page. I think it goes there directly. We're super excited about that trip right now. That seems to be what's heavy on our hearts of just it's actually been easy. There's so many people that want to go to Egypt and get called there. So if that's ever been a calling to you, check that out. And we also have yagertraining.com, YAGER training.com. And that's, we have just different 3-day retreats that lead to full-on programs, transformation retreats. I think what's really cool is that what I'm probably most proud of is the people that we're attracting to our retreats and into our community. Just beautiful humans, people that are waking up, people that have a soul connection to this work, and people that want to get their gifts and their work out there. And sometimes I look around the room and I'm like, I'm just grateful to be in this room, how powerful these human beings are. And that's where I think, you're at the right frequency of the people that you're bringing into your life. Right. And if you're not happy with those people, then find the community that lights you up, that feels like you're full and you're, more than fulfilled. You're servicing others. And that to me is that's just the mark of what I think is success, of being around just incredible minds, humans, big hearts, big thinkers. And that's what Deb and I are super excited about right now.
Thanks, man. That's how I feel talking to you on this podcast, man. Thanks for bringing some positivity, some wisdom into my life as well. It's been really cool talking to you. I'm super excited for folks to check out your retreats and all the experiences you got going on as well. And yeah, I think I would love to talk to you again in the future. So I really appreciate you coming on the show, man.
Thank you. Thanks, Jimmy. It's been awesome.
Yeah. Until next time. Thanks again, Brandon.